When I walked into the glass building that morning, I had no idea my past was waiting for me on the top floor. I thought it was just another job interview, another desperate attempt to rebuild a life that had quietly collapsed over the years. The city outside was loud, impatient, and unforgiving, but inside me there was only one sound, the steady beat of a heart that had been broken once and never fully healed. I straightened my worn-out blazer, adjusted the tie I had borrowed from a friend, and whispered to myself that this was just business, nothing more. I didn't know that fate was about to test every lie I had ever told myself about being over her. 5 years earlier, love had been simple. We were young, reckless, and poor, but happy in a way money can never buy. Her name was Amara. She had a smile that made the worst days feel survivable, and eyes that saw through me even when I tried to hide my fears. We met when we were both struggling, two souls trying to make something of themselves in a world that doesn't wait for anyone. I loved her with everything I had, but sometimes love alone is not enough when life starts demanding more than your heart can give. Back then, I was full of dreams, but empty of direction. I talked about success more than I worked for it. Amara, on the other hand, was disciplined, focused, and endlessly patient. She believed in planning, in sacrifice, in delayed happiness. I believed in passion, in now, in someday magically becoming today. At first, our differences attracted us. Later, they destroyed us. The night we broke up is burned into my memory like a scar that never fades. We were sitting in our tiny apartment, the power out again, candles flickering shadows on the wall. She was crying, quietly, the kind of crying that hurts more because it's controlled. I was angry, not at her, but at myself, though I didn't know how to admit it. She told me she couldn't keep carrying both of us. She said love shouldn't feel like drowning. I told her she was giving up on us. She told me she was choosing herself. And just like that, the woman I planned to marry packed her dreams and walked out of my life. After she left, everything fell apart. Not dramatically, not all at once, but slowly, painfully. Friends moved on, opportunities slipped away, and my confidence faded into regret. I tried to forget her by keeping busy, but every quiet moment brought her back. I heard her voice in my head whenever I failed. I imagined her disappointment more than her smile. I told myself she was gone forever, and that maybe I deserved that. Years passed. I changed cities, took small jobs, lost some, survived others. Life humbled me in ways I never expected. I learned discipline the hard way, through hunger, rejection, and loneliness. Somewhere along the line, I became a better man, but the cost was heavy. And still, even after all that time, the thought of Amara could tighten my chest without warning. So when I received the email inviting me for an interview at Aurelius Group, I saw it as a final chance to prove something, to myself more than anyone else. The company was powerful, respected, and known for its ruthless standards. I prepared for days, memorized answers, practiced confidence in the mirror. I told myself this job could be a turning point. I had no idea that the real turning point would be walking into that boardroom. The interview room was cold and elegant, with a long table and floor-to-ceiling windows. A few executives sat quietly, flipping through my resume. Then the door opened. The sound of heels against marble made my heart skip, but I didn't look up immediately. I was too focused on controlling my breathing. When I finally raised my eyes, the world seemed to stop. It was her. Amara stood there, taller somehow, stronger, dressed in confidence and authority. Her hair was neatly pulled back, her expression calm but unreadable. She looked exactly the same and completely different all at once. The room felt smaller, the air heavier. For a moment, neither of us spoke. Her eyes met mine and I saw it, the flicker of shock quickly buried under professionalism, but I knew her too well. I knew that look. She hadn't expected this either. "Good morning," she said, her voice steady, formal. "I'm Amara Lewis, CEO of Aurelius Group." CEO. The word echoed in my head like a cruel joke. My ex, the woman I once shared instant noodles with on the floor, the woman who left me because I couldn't get my life together. She was now my boss. I wanted to disappear. I wanted to apologize. I wanted to explain everything I had become since she left. Instead, I stood up, nodded politely, and said my name as if we were strangers. The interview continued like a carefully choreographed lie. She asked questions about my experience, my failures, my growth. I answered, honestly, my voice calm while my heart was in chaos. Every now and then, our eyes met, and in those brief seconds, years of memories screamed between us. When it was over, she thanked me and said they'd be in touch. That was it. No acknowledgement of the past, no emotion, just professionalism. I walked out feeling like I had been hit by a storm I never saw coming. 3 days later, I got the call. I was hired. My first day at work felt unreal. Every step I took into that building reminded me of how far she had gone and how far behind I still felt. People spoke her name with respect, almost fear. Ms. Lewis doesn't tolerate excuses. She's brilliant, but strict. I listened silently, wondering if they knew the woman who once laughed at my stupid jokes, who cried in my arms, who believed in me when I didn't. Our interactions were minimal at first. Emails, brief meetings, formal greetings. She never treated me unfairly, never showed favoritism. If anything, she was harder on me than others. Deadlines were strict, feedback was blunt, mistakes were corrected without mercy. At times it felt like punishment. At other times it felt like training. I couldn't tell which hurt more. But love has a way of refusing silence. One evening, I stayed late to finish a report. The office was quiet, lights dimmed, the city glowing outside the windows. I heard footsteps and looked up to see Amara standing there. She looked tired, human again, not the untouchable CEO everyone feared. "You work late," she said. "I work late too," I replied before I could stop myself. There was a pause, a long one. Then she sighed and sat down across from me at the distance between us, suddenly fragile. "I didn't know it would be you," she admitted softly. "When I saw your name on the list, I thought it was someone else." "I didn't know it was you either," I said. "If I had, I might not have come." She looked at me then, really looked at me, and for the first time since the interview, the walls cracked. "You look different," she said. "So do I," I answered. "You look successful." She smiled faintly, but there was sadness in it. Success doesn't erase the past. That sentence broke something open between us. Words we had buried for years started rising to the surface. We talked, not about love, not yet, but about life, about mistakes, about growth, about the cost of ambition. The conversation was careful, but honest. And in that quiet office surrounded by glass and ambition, I realized something terrifying and beautiful at the same time. I still loved her. And judging by the way her voice softened when she said my name, by the way her eyes lingered a second too long, love had refused to die for her too. But the world had changed. Power, boundaries, pain, and pride stood between us. She was my boss now. I was her employee. And the past we shared was a bridge and a wall. As I left the office that night, my heart felt heavier than ever, yet strangely hopeful. Fate had brought us back together, not to repeat the same mistakes, but to test whether love could survive growth, pain, and time. And this was only the beginning. The days after that late-night conversation felt heavier than before, as if something invisible had been awakened and now walked beside us in every hallway, every meeting room, every silent pause. We went back to being professional, but the distance no longer felt neutral. It felt forced. Every time Amara spoke in meetings, her voice calm and authoritative, I heard the echo of the girl who once whispered dreams into my chest at night. Every time she corrected my work or challenged my ideas, I felt this strange mix of pride and pain, knowing she was still pushing me to be better, just like she used to, only now behind the mask of a CEO. I threw myself into work with a hunger I had never known before. Not just to prove my worth to the company, but to prove something to her and maybe to myself. I arrived early, left late, and refused to make excuses. Slowly, people began to notice. My ideas were taken seriously, my reports were praised, my name started appearing in conversations that mattered. And every time I succeeded, I wondered if she saw it too. If somewhere behind her composed expression, she felt the quiet satisfaction of knowing the man she once loved was no longer the same broken dreamer she left behind. But success does not erase emotional landmines. It only gives them more dramatic moments to explode. One afternoon, the company announced a major project, one that could define the future of Aurelius Group, a new international partnership, high stakes, tight deadlines. When Amara announced the project leader, my breath caught in my throat. "You," she said, looking directly at me. The room went silent for a second, then filled with murmurs. I nodded, hiding my shock. This was not a small responsibility. This was trust, or a test, or both. After the meeting, I went to her office. The glass walls were clear, but what stood between us was anything but. "Are you sure about this?" I asked carefully. "People might talk." She didn't look up from her tablet. "Let them," she said. "I chose you because you're capable, nothing else." I wanted to believe that. I really did. But when she finally looked at me, her eyes softened just a little. "Don't make me regret it," she added. Those words stayed with me day and night. As the project progressed, we were forced into closer collaboration, late strategy sessions, heated debates, moments where our minds aligned so perfectly it felt like we had never stopped being a team, and moments where old wounds bled unexpectedly. Sometimes she'd go quiet when I disagreed too strongly, and I'd remember how my stubbornness used to hurt her. Sometimes I'd catch a glimpse of sadness in her eyes when she thought I wasn't looking, and I'd wonder if she was remembering the nights we planned a future that never happened. Then there was Daniel. He was the head of external relations, confident, charming, and very clearly interested in Amara. He lingered too long in her office. He laughed too easily at her jokes. He looked at her in a way that made my chest tighten. People whispered. Some said they were together. Others said he was just trying to get closer to power. Either way, the jealousy I thought I had buried years ago came roaring back, raw and uninvited. One evening, after a particularly long day, I saw them leaving together. She was smiling, a small, tired smile, but real. Something inside me snapped. I told myself I had no right to feel anything. She wasn't mine. She hadn't been for years. But the heart doesn't follow logic. It follows scars. The next day, my focus slipped. I made a mistake in a financial projection, small but noticeable. Amara called me into her office. "This isn't like you," she said, her tone firm but not unkind. "What's going on?" I hesitated. Then the truth slipped out, rough and unfiltered. "I'm trying," I said. "I'm trying to be professional, to do my job, but this, working here with you, it's not simple for me." Her jaw tightened. "It wasn't simple for me either, seeing you walk back into my life like nothing happened." Silence filled the room, thick and dangerous. "Why did you hire me, really?" I asked quietly. She stood up and walked to the window, her back to me. "Because I believe in second chances, and because I needed to know if you had truly changed, or if leaving you was the only way I could survive." Those words hurt more than any rejection, but they were honest, and honesty, even when painful, is a kind of love. Weeks passed. The project neared completion. Pressure mounted. One night, the stress finally broke her. I found her alone in the conference room, lights off, head in her hands. Without thinking, I sat beside her. "I'm tired," she whispered, "tired of being strong all the time." I didn't touch her. I didn't cross the line. I just stayed. And after a while, she leaned back, tears silently tracing down her face. "I loved you," she said, her voice barely audible. "I never stopped, but loving you back then meant losing myself." I swallowed hard. "I know," I said, "and that's something I'll regret for the rest of my life." She turned to me, eyes red but steady. "Love isn't enough," she said. "Not without growth, not without responsibility. I've grown. Not perfectly, not without scars, but I'm not the man I was." She studied my face, as if searching for the truth she once hoped to see. "Maybe," she said, "but growth doesn't mean we go back. Sometimes it just means we understand why things ended." The project launched successfully, the company celebrated, I was praised publicly. Amara shook my hand in front of everyone, pride clear in her eyes. But later that night, alone in my apartment, the victory felt hollow, because the biggest question remained unanswered. Could love survive timing, power, and pain? Or was this reunion simply meant to teach us a final lesson, that some loves shape you, save you, and still cannot stay? As I looked out at the city lights, I knew one thing for sure. Whatever happened next would change us both forever, because love had refused to die, but now it demanded a choice. After the celebration night, something shifted between us. Not loudly, not dramatically, but deeply. The kind of shift that doesn't announce itself, yet changes the weight of every silence. At work, Amara became even more composed, more distant, as if she were building a wall brick by brick to protect a heart that had already been tested once and barely survived. I respected the distance, or at least I tried to, but every time she walked past me without meeting my eyes, it felt like reliving the breakup all over again. Slow, quiet, and unavoidable. Daniel's presence grew stronger. He was officially assigned to work closely with Amara on future expansions, and rumors turned into assumptions. I never asked her about him, I didn't have the right, but the ache of not knowing was worse than any truth I could imagine. It wasn't jealousy alone that hurt. It was the fear that I had arrived too late into the story of her life, that the chapter where I mattered had already been written and closed. One night, after everyone had left, I received a message from her assistant asking me to bring some revised documents to Amara's office. When I entered, I found her standing there, staring at an old framed photo she was holding in her hand. She looked startled when she realized I was there. Quickly, she turned the photo face down on her desk, but it was too late. I had seen it. It was us, younger, smiling, happy in a way that only exists before life teaches you hard lessons. I forgot that was there, she said softly. You kept it, I replied, not accusing, just stating a truth. She sighed and finally sat down. Some memories don't leave just because you tell them to. That night, the walls finally broke. We talked for hours, not like a boss and employee, not like ex-lovers trying to be careful, but like two people finally brave enough to tell the truth without dressing it up. She told me how lonely success had been, how every promotion felt hollow because there was no one beside her who truly knew her past. She admitted that leaving me had been the right decision, but also the most painful one of her life. I told her about the nights I went hungry, the failures that humbled me, the way losing her had forced me to become a man I should have been earlier. I didn't come back for you, I said, but seeing you again made me realize something. I became better because I lost you, not because I stopped loving you. She closed her eyes, tears slipping free. And I became strong because I chose myself, she said. But strength doesn't mean the heart forgets. For the first time, we acknowledged the love openly, not as a promise, not as a reunion, just as truth. And sometimes truth hurts more than lies. The next few days were tense, real, honest. Daniel noticed it too. One afternoon, he confronted me, not aggressively, but with the confidence of someone who believed he already understood the outcome. You and Amara have history, he said. I don't know the details, but I know this. She's not looking backward anymore. I didn't argue. I just answered. Neither am I, but some things walk with you, whether you look at them or not. The company announced another major decision shortly after. Amara would be relocating temporarily to oversee a new international branch, months away. Distance, a clean break disguised as opportunity. When she told me, her voice was steady, but her hands trembled slightly. I leave next week, she said. Something in my chest tightened. Is this what you want? She hesitated, just for a second. It's what makes sense. That week felt like borrowed time. We moved around each other carefully, aware that something unfinished hung between us. On her last day, she called me into her office once more. The space looked emptier already, as if it knew she was leaving. She needs to ask you something, and I need you to answer honestly, not with hope, not with regret, but with truth. I nodded. If I hadn't become your boss, if power, timing, and fear weren't standing between us, would you still choose me, knowing who I am now? I didn't answer immediately. I thought of the past, of who we were. I thought of who we had become. Then I said, quietly but firmly, yes, not because I need you, but because I can finally stand beside you. She looked at me for a long time, as if weighing a lifetime in seconds. Then she smiled, a real smile, the one I remembered. She said, "That's all I needed to know." She left the next morning. Months passed. Work continued. Life moved forward. We spoke occasionally, professional updates, brief check-ins. No promises, no emotional confessions. Just two people allowing time to do what it does best, test truth. I grew further into my role, earned respect without her shadow, proved to myself that I was no longer defined by who I used to be. One evening, long after I'd stopped expecting anything, I received a message from her. "I'm coming back, not as your boss this time. We need to talk." When she walked into the cafe where we agreed to meet, there was no title between us, no hierarchy, just history, growth, and a quiet courage. She sat across from me and said the words that finally brought peace. She said, "Love didn't die, but it needed time to grow up, just like we did." This wasn't a fairy tale ending. It was better. It was real. We didn't rush. We didn't pretend the past didn't exist. We chose honesty over fantasy, patience over desperation. And that was the lesson love had been trying to teach us all along. Sometimes love leaves not to punish you, but to prepare you.